Welcome to the show, What is a Little Girl Supposed to Do? The show is about survival, perseverance, and redemption. Good afternoon. My name is Belinda Olive Beltran, and this is LaShanti Turner, my daughter. And this is our guest today. Her name is Rahana Bear.
Hello.
And we want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. The show is about perseverance, redemption, and learning how to love yourself again. And so we just want to thank everyone for listening or watching What is a Little Girl Supposed to Do? And so today we would like to talk about mental illness and how to overcome, become an overcomer.
Okay.
That's the thing. How to become an overcomer, because we go through so much in this life, so many challenges, and so we're learning how to be an overcomer. And this beautiful sister, Rahana, her profession, she will explain her profession. She will be a great help to everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for coming too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, for real. I worked in social services for about 19 years, and then mental health for about 14 years.
Wow.
So my whole life, basically since I was 18, I've worked in social services. My bachelor degree is in human development, which gave me a really good foundation for that.
Okay.
And then the last 5 years, I've worked in criminal mental health. And so I got to experience a little bit of a different side. I've worked with adolescents for 7 years, the onset of mental illness, and then I've worked with elders and just all populations. Yeah.
Okay.
In the field. But my passion now is more towards women and adolescent girls.
Okay.
I just see that there's a big disparity there, and I want to work with that population mostly.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm in school getting my master's in counseling.
All right.
So that's a good thing.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes, what an honor.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I know that there was a couple things that I heard in your bio when you said the onset of mental illness. What does that mean?
The onset of mental illness is happens when someone first experiences some kind of psychosis or something that happens, a trigger. And so that usually can happen between 14 and like 21, you know. And so that's why I have such a big passion for adolescents, because if there's any negative, adverse things that happen in their life, it can trigger something to happen, and it can trigger like mental illness.
Really?
And they don't know what's going on because they've never experienced it before, you know.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, you know, reaching out and having people understand and see the signs and the symptoms ahead of time, and having families and like people talk about it is something that I think is really important, because a lot of times families have this thing where they love someone so much. Well, nothing's wrong with Johnny.
Right.
You know, nothing's wrong with Sally. You know, she's just experiencing like hormones or something like that, when it can be a deeper issue and you have no idea what's going on in their head, you know?
Right.
So,
Wow.
so starting there, you know, and then I just think women, I've worked with many women, and, you know, working with people in like shelters, working with women, you know, in transitional housing, stuff like that.
Okay.
Working with women on the streets, you know, they need a place to live for the night.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times they have to convert to sex work.
Yeah.
They have to convert to like being taken advantage of, you know, just so they can have somewhere to sleep.
Right.
And so like that kind of stuff needs to be talked about.
Okay.
And there needs to be like advocacy for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I think that's like something that I'm passionate about.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we need people to be counselors or advocates or therapists that has experienced different things. I mean, you worked in the field and you've experienced a lot of the things that we're talking about today, and especially with the COVID, since 2019, 2020, there has been so much mental illness. I mean, it's out of control.
The fear, and the people are triggered. You know, it brings, you know, if you're like, I lost my job, their job's their stability.
Right.
You know, I'm going to lose my house because I don't have rent to pay.
Yes.
That can trigger, they can be stable for 5 years and that could trigger something in them, you know?
Okay.
And they can experience some kind of psychosis or, you know, be re-traumatized by stuff that they've healed for 5 years, you know? And then every day you turn on the TV and what do you see? Like,
Okay.
you know, CV this and you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
people are dying and people are fighting with each other and people are at each other's throats and cancel culture and, you know, this person did this to me and then the police and then it's just like, holy cow. Like in a year and a half, we've gone through some crazy stuff, like you know, crazy stuff, you know, and that's probably not even the right word to say, but it's just like, we got to heal from it and we are capable beings to heal from that kind of stuff, and that's the shift in the narrative we need to move towards. You know, because people can get angry and they can get emotional, but when the emotions come back down, it's like, okay, how did I get here? Sometimes I forget how they got there, and that's not the healthy part. You know what I mean? We need to move through that. Yes, we're feeling all that. We're moving through all that stuff, and that's normal because you should feel angry, you should feel upset, you should feel these things. But then you should be able to release them and let them go. And when it's just like, you know, thrown in our face every day by what's going on in the world, then, you know, it's a lot harder to do that.
Yes, man. So I hear there's a lot of suicide going on right now. There's a lot.
Yeah. I don't think it's being talked about as much, you know, because everything is, most of the things that they're talking about is like the medical diagnoses and, you know, the medical stuff going on with the pandemic. You know, but kids are at high risk, people that have lost their jobs, you know, people that have lost family members, you know, the suicide rates are out of control. And people can look you know, those statistics up. But, you know, you got to know the steps too also to like assessing someone. I don't know all the steps, you know, I mean, I'm still learning, but, you know, if there's something that you notice in somebody, reach out, you know, and try to get support and help for people because, you know, grief and loss is a worse feeling.
Grief and loss.
Than having them be angry for calling a counselor on them or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yes, man. So I know my question to you is when you know someone is not themselves, but they're feeling as if they're okay. Because most of the time when people is sick or going through some type of mental trauma, they don't realize it. They believe that they're okay. But looking looking outside of the inside of the person, what they used to be like. Absolutely. What is the proper procedure to get that person some care?
I mean, the first thing is just, if they're causing adverse effects in their life, negative things like they're losing their job, they, you know, are not getting out of bed, they're not eating, they're not showering, those kind of things, then you know something's wrong. If they're just acting a little wild or weird, that could just be them. You know what I mean? And you just gotta let people be people, you know? But if it's causing negative effects in their life, then you definitely want to get someone involved. So, I mean, obviously I would ask them, you know, say, hey, I just see that these things have happened in your life and I, you know, like to see if you'd like to, you know, talk with somebody about it. And if they're, no, I don't want to talk with anybody about it. A lot of people say that, you know, not everybody, but then there's crisis lines, you know, there's steps to take to see. But if they're doing harm to themselves, doing harm to others, committing crime, stuff like that, that's going to lead them down a path that they don't know that they're going down. If they're committing crimes, you know, then they could end up in jail when it was just their mental illness that was causing something or causing them to do something, you know, and that's not the path that they want to be at. No one, they could wake up in jail one day and not be in psychosis anymore and say, well, how the hell did I get here?
Okay.
You know, and we don't want that. Like, nobody wants that, you know, because in jail, you learn from the criminals, and so they take advantage of people with mental illness,
Okay.
you know, because they see that they're more vulnerable, and so they learn those behaviors from the real criminals that are actually in jail,
I got
and
you.
that causes a negative effect to everybody in the world,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
So, first thing is, like, if they're harm to themselves or harm to others, or causing harm by, committing crimes, something like that, then I would call the crisis line to ask if they could get assessed. You know, Multnomah County has a crisis line, Vancouver has a crisis line,
Okay.
Clackamas County has a crisis line, you know. I think most areas have a crisis line. There's a vet's crisis line, you know, and we should put all those numbers down for everyone to
Absolutely.
see.
I think that's a good idea.
Multnomah County, where we are here in Portland, Oregon, has a crisis line. They have crisis counselors that are available to talk to 24/7. And they have Project Respond, a team that they work with that comes in and can assess people if they're in acute psychosis and they are a threat to themselves or a threat to others. And so that's one thing that you can call and say, hey, I think I need someone assessed. If you cannot get them to the hospital, you know, Unity Hospital in Portland is a wonderful hospital that is specific for psychiatric illness. So if you can get them to Unity Hospital, if someone can take them, then that's probably one of the first steps too. Like in acute psychosis, you know what I mean? If someone's experiencing, like,
I was just gonna ask you. I was just gonna say, I'm like, okay, so please explain to me, because in
Sorry.
honesty, no, because I've been through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have not ever sat down and spoken to a counselor or a therapist.
not a therapist, but
Therapist,
on my
counselor.
way. Yeah.
I love that. And so when you say that there are different triggers, I heard you say there's different triggers. Now, speaking to someone that has not had or spoken to a counselor or a therapist, I've had different experiences in my life, and I've noticed different times when I'm dealing with a different experience, like my body, like my reaction, and then I'm just like, I instantly go to
Wild.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And is that the psychosis that you were talking about?
So it can be. It depends
Okay.
if you're there and it's just something that you're thinking about. Or a lot of times, like, if I'm speaking of, like, acute psychosis, I'm thinking of someone that doesn't really know what's going on in the outside world.
Okay.
And they're stuck in their head.
Okay.
And so they're expressing behaviors that they normally wouldn't express, you know?
Okay.
Like not looking left and right when you're walking across the street because they don't see traffic. They only see, like, the person that they're talking to in their head if they're experiencing, like, schizophrenia or something like that.
Okay.
You know? So those kind of things, you know, I would say would bring someone to a hospital or call the crisis line, because if they are not if they don't know what's going on with themselves, then they can be a harm to themselves. I mean, not always.
Right.
You know, not
Right.
always. Let people be people. But
Right.
if they can walk in the street without looking both ways, they can get hit by a car. You know
Right.
what I mean? If
I
it's your
got you.
family member, you're like, something ain't right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
then that's really important. You know, Unity, it's been around for a couple years. Like, I can't really speak. I've worked with them in the past, but it's a psych hospital dedicated to just that, which is wonderful for the Portland area. I mean, every area needs that. You know, there's other places for treatment for people.
Okay.
But, you know, if you have an emergency situation, then if you can bring someone there, that's probably the best place. You know, but if they say they don't want to leave their house, you know,
Right.
say, leave me alone, I don't want
Right.
to leave my house, then you can call the crisis line, and then someone like Project Respond can come out and then assess them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As
Okay.
opposed to calling the police and having the police come out, and a lot of people are triggered by the police.
Right.
You know, not saying that, you know, the police can't do that job, but that's not their job.
Right.
Their, job
Right.
is safety. So, that needs to be a mental health professional. And that's why they have,
agree.
and that's why they have, Project Respond, because they realized that there was such a need for it, and then what happens sometimes is what they can do is put someone on a hold, and then that can get them taken to the hospital and say, like, you're you're a danger to yourself or others, let's get you to the hospital and hopefully for treatment, and then there's a whole nother side of the story too, when you're dealing with like, substance-induced psychosis, because
Yes.
there's not always something you can do for that, because it's like the drugs are going through someone's system. You just kind of got to let them wash out,
Okay.
and they could be hospitalized, but you can't really hold somebody for that because they're under the influence.
I got you.
So it's kind of you
Right.
can't take away people's rights, it's kind of
Right.
like it's their free will,
Right.
You don't obviously want to see people struggling or going through something, but, if it gets to a level where it's a danger, then that's when you take the necessary steps. But if you're talking about someone like someone in your family is like starting to experience psychosis and they've never experienced it before and you're noticing it, that's when the time to talk with them,
Okay.
and bring in other family members, bring in friends, people that care about them, because those are the people that they're going to listen to most likely, those are the people they care about. That's their support system,
Right. Right.
And so there's a lot of people, especially for different cultures, like there's like, different systems that cultures use too. So like for us, for like the Black community, right? So it's like our family and our friends want to bring all those people in because that's like it takes a village. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That's our culture, right?
Right.
So bring in those family and those friends, and that's what I would use for like our population. But different cultures have different populations. I can't really speak about all of them. I don't remember all of them right now,
Absolutely.
but I think that kind of can shift a narrative maybe in people sometimes if it's not too deep. And have them say, oh yeah, I did walk out of my job. I don't know why I did that. You know what I mean? Or like I ended this relationship, or, I haven't eaten 2 days. I don't know why I'm doing that, and then you can find out what else is like really going on. So
Yes.
I can ramble on forever.
No, it's okay. I love that. Okay, so you gotta tell me this. Okay, so what made you want to get into this field?
Probably my history. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I've always liked people and always wanted to help people, even from when I was a little kid. Like, I think that's just my nature.
Yeah.
I grew up in a bad place. I grew up with like domestic violence and my father was an alcoholic. And so seeing that kind of stuff, I thought maybe I'd want to work in DV, which is domestic violence. And I just thought, no, I think it'd be too triggering for me, because everyone still has to do their own work.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
The trigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I definitely knew that I wanted to help people. And then working with adolescents and working, I worked in with the developmental intellectual disability population for 5 years. I worked with adolescents for 7 years. I worked in addictions, and then I worked just in general mental health and criminal mental health.
Okay.
And so I realized, like, especially when I worked with adolescents, I was like, oh, kind of like them. I'm like,
Right.
I was like, oh, because they're at that stage in their life. And remember, your brain's not developed till you're 25. And sometimes...
Really?
Yes, absolutely. And in males, your brain sometimes doesn't develop until later, 26, 27 or later.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you have all these hormones that are rushing through your body when you're an adolescent, and you can go left or you could go, you can go left or you could go right. And it's like, if I can work with adolescents and try to get them
Right.
at a stage to help them go right,
Right.
whatever that way may be, as long as they're not harming themselves, I'm
Right.
okay with that. You know what I mean? Just be who you are. But I just realized, like, that's something that I'm really passionate about. And then working with women, because, like, I saw what my mother went through with domestic violence. I saw women on the streets. I've had my own experience just being a woman.
Absolutely.
I was a bad teenager when I was a teenager.
Right.
Sorry, Mom, she loves me now. She loves me now. I've turned it around. Were you a bad teenager too?
Oh yes, yes, I was. And my mom would say, well, when you have a daughter, just think about the stuff that you put me through.
I got a daughter now.
10 times.
Yeah.
See? So just write it out. Just write it out. Write it out. And then just give her all of the guidance and all of the good things the things that you didn't want, you know what I mean? And the things that you do, for sure. And then when I noticed, go ahead, Mom, do you have a question? Because I know that I had something at the tip of my brain, because I wanted to ask that when it comes to trauma, when it comes to trauma as a child, when you say criminal, I noticed that you said that too, criminal. So when it comes to trauma as a child, what happens? I'm quite sure that you have, like, there's something that happens at that stage as a child, and then if it doesn't ever get helped, then it turns into a road down the road of criminal.
It doesn't turn into criminal.
It doesn't.
It can.
It can.
Any adverse reaction that we have in our lives, if we don't move through it and heal from it, then it can cause a negative reaction. Not always. You know what I mean? But some things can cause something that, it's like the wiring in your brain kind of goes like this instead of going like this. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, but if you have several of those adverse reactions over and over again, you know what I mean? They jump on top of each other, and who knows what could happen. Sometimes people have nothing happen. And they're totally fine. But, with the way the world is, I'm sure most people experience some adverse reactions, especially what's been going on. It's touching all our emotions, what's happening with people and what's happening with people being sick and stuff like that,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Right. And then you, like I was going to say, and then you've been, and then I don't know if you know my mom's story. My mom being diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic over 20 years ago, right? Over 20 years ago. You know how long it's been, what, 79?
1979.
1979.
Almost 30-something years.
Almost 30-something years ago.
Well,
yeah?
no, 40. Actually, almost 40. 1979.
1979.
Calculated.
I'm calculating.
42.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And healing from that.
Healing.
Well, I healed. I mean, how I healed was, it was a variety of things because it lasted for over a 10-year period of time.
From the time that you were diagnosed?
From the time I was diagnosed to the time I was on all these different medications. They kept, I can't say experimenting, but they were trying to get the medication right. Okay?
Absolutely.
But it was never right because the medicine just had me out of control. Hearing voices, voices is telling me to kill myself, telling me exactly what to do. Go to the pawn shop, buy yourself a gun, go in the bathroom, and just shoot yourself in the head and get it over with. It'll be all over. And I fought these demons or whatever, minions, or I fought them for years. I hated to get out of bed. I hated for daylight to come. I just wanted it to be dark because during the day or night, these voices would just become so overwhelming. I'm like, how is a person supposed to function like this? I'm single mom, divorced mom, because being in a domestic violence situation with my children's father, that was another experience. And so, it was a challenge. But I was expressing to my daughter the other day, I never talked about it, even though I was in and out of the mental hospitals. The hospital that I went to, and I was there for like 9 months, inpatient, up in Tacoma, Western State. But one thing I do remember, I remember crying. I had never cried like this in my whole life. I cried in front of all the people in the day room because I was thinking about all the stuff that I had gone through, and I had never really cried. I cried. I just screamed and hollered and just let it go. And after that good cry, it helped me.
It's healing.
Yes.
It's healing, but our culture's shamed about crying.
I was gonna say that too, because if you cry,
Yes.
then you're weak. that means you can't handle it. And we really don't want to talk to somebody outside of, because then you're like, I don't want to really say anything because then I don't know if I say something, who else are they going to tell?
Yes.
Who else are they going to tell? So then you keep it to yourself.
Yes.
And then what happens to that? What happens to keeping trauma inside yourself and not saying anything to nobody?
Exactly. It's like funerals, you know,
Yes.
how they're like quiet and like people are tearing up in the corner and stuff. But I think, I don't know if you look at like other countries, I think like Italy or something, they're carrying people through the streets.
Okay.
People, they're crying and screaming and letting out those emotions because that's what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're supposed to like let it go and move through it because that's what emotions are.
Okay.
You know, which
Okay.
is not always easy. And
Man.
now everything is,
Man.
you know,
Right.
taken
Wow.
to the extreme sometimes.
Wow.
Or, you know, I mean, it's just if you see someone crying on the street, who knows if someone could be filming you from their cell phone and say, look at that person crying on the street. They don't even know what's going on. They're just
Right.
judging you. And you're like,
Right.
dang,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
Right. We need some good old lavender. We need some good old lavender.
Use those tools, that's
Ooh,
right.
see? Oh my gosh. And so, oh my gosh. Okay, so,
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
absolutely, Mom.
I didn't know that yet.
Yeah, she did.
Yes, and I had never thought about it until recently,
Right.
and that's why I can say that was one good thing that happened to me in that hospital.
So after that, did kind of things start to dissipate?
Well, I was in that hospital altogether for like 9 months, and then yes, I was able to go home, but a lot of my problems that I was having was with the medication.
Right. Wow.
I have to honestly say.
Absolutely. That's what it's.
I was
That's what
gonna
it's
say,
for.
and then how
Yeah.
long do you think it was when we say that from the time that you started taking it? I want to say what, 97, what it would be, 79 when you started taking the medicine. So 79 is when you started taking the medicine. And then from the time you started taking it, that's when they told you that you were going to be on this medicine for the rest of your life.
Yes, that's what I was told
Originally.
because I was diagnosed when I lived in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
But I was
That's
able to move to Vancouver. Rest in peace, my lovely sister. In 1982, she moved us to Vancouver, Washington. So when I was in and out of the mental hospitals there, toward the end, 1988, I was going to this place called Elahan, and that's for mental illness over there in Vancouver. And I had this doctor, and he would counsel with me and everything. And so one day he just told me, he said, Belinda, he said, I've been listening to everything that you've gone through in your life. And he said, you're not paranoid schizophrenic. You just been going through so much stress. He said, so this medicine, you don't need to be on this medicine. Since you've been on it for over 10 years, it's going to take a time to wean you off of it. So they said, but you have to go back to the doctor in Portland that prescribed it for you. I was sent back to the doctor in Portland, but that doctor said, no, I need to be on that medicine for the rest of my life because I would never be able to function. And my doctor in Vancouver said, no, we're going to take her off of this medicine. And so I've been off of medication since 1989, and I've been functioning at 100%, and I will never, only time I look back is when I see other people. I mean, I just really feel bad for other people. When I see people on the street, I can tell by their eyes, the look in their eyes, and the things that they're doing, I know when they're on medicine. And I just feel bad. I feel bad for them because I know what they're going through. You know, and it was just a horrible thing. But I survived.
You remember the voices?
I remember the voices.
Remember the voices?
Yeah, I remember the voices. Yeah, the voices were horrible. I mean,
They're
they
loud.
were like, they were there. It was overwhelming. I mean, they were loud. They were loud, and there was nothing I could do.
There's
Okay, John, you need to thank your guest and then allow her to kind of close out and give information about where we can find her online, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Rahana, for coming. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is so much information. And I would love to hear more and to be a part of your journey. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Big time.
Thank you for having me. I mean,
Oh my gosh, I appreciate it.
come speak anytime you want.
Yes. And please let us know how to get in touch with you, your website, what's your upcoming.
Oh, yeah. My website goes live next week, pandabearmagicllc. You can email me at pandabearmagicllc@gmail.com, and we can connect that way.
Okay.
I just, I want to connect with people because I think, connection is key,
Yes. Yes.
And I'm so glad that you brought your story up because I think people need to hear that.
Yes.
And, I just think that you guys are doing amazing with this. And this is the right thing to be doing because people need to talk about this stuff
Man.
and it needs to be brought into the light. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would love for you to share your other, you have reiki and your
Right, your
essential
Reiki, your oils, and your
Yeah.
stones and your
Oh,
gems.
my God.
Please treat
share
us.
that.
Oh, well, I mean, just outside of all the other stuff, I'm a Reiki healer, and so I've done that since 2017. And I just working in such a dark field sometimes, I was like, I just need really more light in my life and to work on the healing process.
Beautiful.
And so I got attuned in Reiki. And then I'm an ordained minister, so I've done weddings for my friends, and I've done I did one celebration of life, but I was a little nervous at first, but actually it was such a beautiful process. I would, love to hold space for people in that again, And, I work with doTERRA, and so I use the essential oils and the products to make a healthier lifestyle for my daughter and I, and for if I'm having anxiety, I'm like, okay, let me rub a little something over here or there. You know what I mean? To
Right.
ground myself back again, because I'm in school. School is no
Absolutely.
joke.
Right.
So take this like a full-time job.
Right.
And then I got a
Absolutely.
little one too. So, but please, reach out
Yes.
to me,
Absolutely.
Panda Bear Magic
All right.
LLC
Panda Bear Magic
Thank
LLC.
you.
at
Thank you.
gmail.com.
Thank you so
Panda Bear
much.
Magic.
We appreciate you.
LLC at gmail.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. What is a little girl supposed to do? Until next time.